Hi class. I ran a little short this morning being able to talk about our first Desmos project, so I want to make a quick video to tell you a few things more about Desmos. First, up here at the top, you can get the link to Desmos itself, or you can search for Desmos. It's just desmos.com, as you can see in that link. And this will open up the Desmos calculator, and you can click on the graphing calculator to get started. I also want to go back to the project area for a second to talk about some of these resources. The Desmos user guide is particularly helpful in terms of talking about the graphing calculator and some of the things we can do. So for example, if I click on the graphing calculator piece, apologies while it loads. There we go. Then it gives me some examples, and I also can find out like how to use functions, how to change my graph settings, so what some of the keyboard shortcuts can be. Some of the things that may be useful to you are functions, for example, like how do I use functions? How can I get Desmos to work with those functions? So there's a video on it about using function notation. So there are some various things, depending on what we happen to be doing in class, that you may be able to find some resources up there. So I had a question about that earlier, so I wanted to point that out. It's part of the user guide right here. A lot of our learning about Desmos is going to be exploring and through completing the projects right here. So in this first project, what I want to talk about here is we're going to make a Desmos graph. We're going to make a note text box. You're going to put your name in it. And we're going to make a few folders, and we're going to do some things inside these folders. So I'm going to do a quick demo of what this is going to look like. I'm not going to use these exact same items that you're going to complete, but hopefully this will keep it something similar to what you're going to do. I'm going to go into my Desmos graph here. And one of the first things to note is that this plus icon can help me add an item. So a note, I can type my name in this note. I have my cap lock on apparently. There we go. I can type my name in this note. And then when I hit enter, if I don't see those quotation marks there, I'm not in a note and an action item instead. So I can have Desmos do a variety of things. Like I can ask it what 2 plus 17 is. It's going to calculate it for me automatically. Or if I want to do something like the square root, where it might require a special symbol, I can pop up this keypad here and get the square root symbol and figure out what the square root of 8 is. And it will compute that for me automatically. These are some of the kinds of things that you're going to be doing in the first project, is just exploring how Desmos works as a regular calculator. So we're actually not using the graphing space here at all. So I could make this bigger and just get rid of the graphing space. We'll definitely be using it later, but not for this first project. It's more about how to use it as a regular calculator. I'm going to downsize it again just because that's how I'm used to looking at it. One of the other things that you do need to do for this project is use some folders. So you can use the folder icon here. And I'm going to name this one folder 1. I think I told you in the project what to call it what I told you. And I can drag things to where I want them to be. I can also drag these items into this folder. See this line down here? They're all in the folder. And then when I close the folder, they are hidden when the folder collapses and then expanded when the folder expands. So that's one thing you will want to make sure is true of your project. Okay. Then I can type things in a variety of ways. I can type things like 2 to the 8th power using the caret symbol on the keyboard, or I could type it as 2 to the 8th power using the toolpad down here. I prefer using the keyboard shortcuts, which is one of the things that you can find in the Desmos help areas, the keyboard shortcuts. That's something that I use a lot when I'm working in Desmos, is how do I type what I want to do rather than click on the buttons. So that could be helpful. I'm using this list of shortcuts can be very helpful on that. I'm using like the caret symbol for exponents. So I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but there are lots of them, and I'll have to open the file to actually get them. So cool. All right, so it's not all the way open, but let me find my project again. I'm going to get rid of these extra windows for a second so I can stay in the one I want to. So we need exponents, we need special characters, we need fractions, and square roots. We already talked about square roots. Fractions. So I can actually just use the division key. You're not going to see a fraction thing in here If I go into functions and miscellaneous, again, that's where I might see some of the other things like the square root or the nth root, some of the logarithms that we'll get to later. But even in any of these, like I don't see a fraction. So some people have wondered, how do I enter fractions? So it's just the division key, which on my keyboard is the same key as the question mark. So if I want to do the fraction 1/2, I hit the division key and it auto makes that fraction for me automatically. And then if I don't want it to give me a decimal, I can click on this symbol right here and it turns the response back into a fraction. So this is the make my answer look like a fraction versus if it's not clicked, then my answer appears as a decimal. Okay. One last thing to show, because I know this is part of the project, is if I wanted to have a bunch of things on top of a fraction, like I wanted to have 1 plus 2 on top of a fraction. If I hit the fraction, the divide by key, it's only going to put the last thing in it. So instead, I could put parentheses, and then the fraction bar. Or I could, what I could do is type like 1 to the fraction bar, then go back up to the top and finish typing. So a couple different ways of entering an expression to get things in the right place. Okay. You can always type a fraction bar just by itself and it will make a fraction as well. That was just hitting the division key, and then I have to do stuff to type in the top and bottom. So the first thing you hit is the fraction key, then you're going to have an empty fraction to play around with. All right. So again, just a quick intro, maybe a little too much here, but I wanted to show you how you could begin with that first project. Making a note text box, making a folder, and just typing a few things. You're not going to type the answer. You're going to type in this expression and have Desmos evaluate the answer. So you're going to type something similar to these statements right here. Type in 2 to the 8th. It tells you that 2 to the 8th is 256 or whatever other values I asked you to use in the project. Okay, that's it. Once it's done, you're going to save it. So when you save it, you are going to title it with the name of the project that I asked you to call it. You're going to click Save, and then you're going to click the link over here, Share Graph, copy your link. That link that you copy, you will paste into JetNet to submit. If you have other questions about the project, please let me know. And you may always send me your projects ahead of time before the due date for me to review them if you have any questions about them. And I can give you some feedback and maybe suggest some changes if everything doesn't look good. Or if it does look good, I'll just say, hey, that looks great, and go ahead and submit. All right, I hope to see you guys again soon, and I will talk to you tomorrow.